The command center of the Vakrine flagship buzzed with activity as Commander Thalric reviewed the data for the 100th time. His long fingers moved across the holographic display, pulling up image after image of what his analysts had recovered from human transmissions. Each one made his blood run colder than the last. There were humans destroying entire planets with weapons that shouldn't exist. Humans who could survive being torn apart and put back together. Humans who commanded massive armies of mechanical warriors. Humans who treated death itself as merely an inconvenience. The evidence was overwhelming and terrifying. These creatures are more dangerous than anything we've encountered in 300 cycles of expansion, Thalric said to his second officer. They broadcast their capabilities openly, as if daring anyone to challenge them. His second officer nodded gravely. The intelligence division believes these are training recordings, Commander. They're showing their young ones how to wage war across the stars. Thalric had brought all of this to the High Council of the Vakrine Collective 2 weeks ago. The decision had been swift and unanimous. Humanity represented an existential threat to every civilized species in the galaxy. War was the only option. Strike first, strike hard, and perhaps the Vakrine would survive this encounter with the monsters from the planet they called Earth. The fleet had traveled for months to reach this distant yellow star. Now they hung in the darkness, beyond the orbit of the outermost planet, preparing their weapons and steeling themselves for what they assumed would be the fight of their lives. Captain Li Doyen was reviewing maintenance schedules when the alarm started screaming. He jumped from his chair in the command center of Defense Station Horizon, his coffee spilling across the desk. The screens lit up with contacts, dozens of them, all massive and all broadcasting on every frequency humans had ever used. What am I looking at? Doyon asked his sensor officer. Unknown vessels, Captain? They're big. Really big. And they're heading our way. Park Hannah rushed into the command center, her tablet already displaying preliminary translation attempts. She was the station's diplomatic officer. Though in her 3 years of service, she'd never actually had to deal with a real first contact situation. Her hands shook slightly as she pulled up the alien transmission. They're speaking multiple languages, she said, her voice tight with concentration. Some Earth languages, some we've never heard before. I think they're trying to make sure we understand them. What are they saying? Duan asked. Park Hannah's face went pale. They're declaring war on us. The message played across every screen on the station. The alien commander spoke in heavily accented but understandable English, followed by Korean, Mandarin, Spanish, and a dozen other languages. The words were formal, almost ritualistic. We, the Vakrine Collective, have witnessed your power and your threat to all peaceful species. You have shown us your weapons, your cruelty, and your contempt for life. We cannot allow your expansion to continue. This is war. May your gods have mercy on you, for we shall have none. Doyon stared at the screen in complete confusion. What is he talking about? What weapons? What expansion? I don't know, Park Hannah said, but we need to respond. Now. She composed a message as quickly as she could, her fingers flying across the keyboard. This is Park Hannah of United Earth Defense Station Horizon. We receive your transmission, but we don't understand. We have no hostile intentions toward any species. We seek peaceful contact and communication. Please respond so we can resolve this misunderstanding. She sent the message and waited. The aliens sent nothing back. Instead, 3 Vakrine ships broke from the main fleet and accelerated toward Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. The small mining outpost there had maybe 200 people, all civilian contractors working to extract water ice and minerals. Du Yun watched helplessly as the alien ships opened fire. The weapons were nothing like anything in Earth's arsenal. Beams of purple energy sliced through the outpost's protective domes like they were made of paper. Atmosphere vented into space. People died in seconds. Get rescue ships there now. Doyen shouted, "Every ship we have." Park Hannah sent another message to the aliens, this one more desperate. Please stop. Those are civilians. Non-combatants. We are not your enemy. The Vakrine ships stopped firing. Doyon felt a moment of relief until he realized they weren't leaving. They were waiting, watching. 3 Earth ships reached Europa within the hour. They weren't warships. They were emergency response vessels with medical teams and rescue equipment. They pulled survivors from the wreckage, administering first aid, sealing hull breaches where they could, recovering bodies where they couldn't, aboard the lead Vacrine attack ship. Subcommander Venkrel watched the human response with growing confusion. "They're not counterattacking," he said to his tactical officer. "Obviously a trap," the tactical officer replied. "They want us to move closer. Then they'll reveal their true weapons." "Should we destroy the rescue vessels?" The tactical officer considered this. "No, if we do, we'll never see what they're really capable of. Let them play their game. We'll be ready." The Vacrine ships withdrew to the main fleet. Venkrel sent his report to Commander Thalric with a note of concern. The humans weren't behaving like any enemy he'd ever faced. They showed no fear, no anger, no tactical response at all. Just rescue and recovery. As if the attack had been some kind of natural disaster rather than an act of war. Thalric read the report 3 times. He called in his intelligence officer and made him explain again how they knew humans were dangerous. The officer showed him the transmissions again. Humans with incredible powers. Humans destroying planets. Humans commanding vast armies. "What if they're so powerful they don't see us as a threat?" Thalric said quietly. "What if they're not counterattacking because they don't think they need to?" The intelligence officer considered this. "That would be terrifying, Commander." "Yes," Thalric agreed. "It would be." Back on Defense Station Horizon, Doyon coordinated with Earth Command and the Mars colonies. Everyone was scrambling to understand what had just happened. President Cho Min-seo herself got on a video call with Doyon and Park Hannah, her face grave but calm. "Keep trying to communicate with them," she ordered. "I'm authorizing defensive measures for all stations and colonies, but nobody fires unless absolutely necessary. This has to be a misunderstanding. Nobody starts an interstellar war without a reason." "They think they have a reason," Park Hannah said quietly. "They said we've shown them our weapons, our cruelty. But I don't know what they're talking about, and we figure it out," the president said. "We have first contact protocols for a reason. We'll get through this." But as the Vacrine fleet began moving toward the inner solar system, their weapons charging and their warriors preparing for battle, nobody on Earth realized just how badly the aliens had misunderstood everything they thought they knew about humanity. "Commander." Thalric stood before the High Council's holographic projections, his body stiff with military precision. The council members floated in their chambers light years away, but their presence felt heavy and immediate. "The humans have not responded with force," Thalric reported. "Our strike on their mining facility killed 47 and wounded over 100. Their response was purely defensive. Rescue ships only." "This confirms our fears," the eldest council member said, her voice crackling through the transmission. "They are so confident in their superiority that they don't even acknowledge our attack as a threat. Escalate immediately. Hit a major population center. Force them to reveal their true capabilities." Thalric felt something twist in his stomach, but he gave the order anyway. Mars Colony 7 was selected as the target. It housed 15,000 humans in agricultural domes that grew food for the outer settlements. Intelligence suggested it had minimal military value, which meant the humans would have to respond if it was destroyed. Pilot. Kim Jun-ho was flying a supply run between Mars Colony 7 and the smaller outpost at Colony 3 when the attack began. He saw the Vacrine ships drop out of whatever faster-than-light travel they used, appearing like deadly flowers blooming in the black. "This is Supply Runner Red 7 to Colony 7 Control. I see hostile contacts in your vicinity. Please confirm the transmission cut off as purple energy beams lance down from orbit." Junho watched in horror as 3 of the largest agricultural domes simply vanished, placed by expanding clouds of frozen atmosphere and debris. Thousands of people lived in those domes. His brother Minsu worked in Dome 2 as a hydroponics engineer. "No, no, no, no," Junho whispered, his hands already moving across his controls. He wasn't a military pilot, but every civilian craft had basic emergency response training. He diverted all power to engines and dove toward the colony. The Vakrin ships had stopped firing. They hung in orbit like judges waiting to see what sentence their actions had earned. Gunho didn't care about them. He only cared about getting people out. His ship wasn't designed for mass rescue, but he crammed it full anyway. 20 people in a cabin meant for 6. He ignored their screams and crying and just kept pulling survivors from the wreckage. On his 3rd trip back to the damaged sections, he found his brother. Minsu was dead. A piece of structural support had gone through his chest when the dome collapsed. He died instantly. Y told Junho later, as if that was supposed to make it better. Junho pulled his brother's body free anyway and brought it back to the ship with the living. On his 4th trip into the danger zone, Junho's scanner picked up a distress signal. Not human. It was coming from a small craft that had crashed in the debris field. A Vakrin scout ship, damaged and leaking atmosphere. Every rational part of Junho's brain told him to ignore it. These monsters had just killed his brother and thousands of others. Let them suffocate. Let them die alone and scared. But he didn't. He couldn't. He changed course and brought his ship alongside the damaged scout. Through the cracked canopy, he could see the alien pilot.
Ow.
Small and frail-looking. Struggling with their controls, Junho used his ship's emergency airlock to create a seal and pulled the alien through. The Vakrin pilot was light, almost delicate in Junho's arms. They looked up at him with what might have been fear in their large, dark eyes. "I've got you," Junho said, even though the alien probably couldn't understand. "You're going to be okay." He got the alien to the medical center, along with the human survivors. The doctors looked at him like he was crazy, but they treated the Vakrin pilot anyway. That was what doctors did, aboard the Vakrin flagship. Commander Thalric received the transmission from the rescued scout pilot with something approaching disbelief. The pilot, a young female named Sylvan, described how a human had pulled her from certain death even while his own people were dying around them. "He saved my life," Commander Sylvan said, her voice shaking. "His craft was full of wounded humans, but he diverted to rescue me anyway. I don't understand. We just killed his people. Why would he do this?" Thalric had no answer. He added this to the growing list of human behaviors that made no tactical sense. On Earth, President Cho Min-seo addressed an emergency session of the United Nations. Representatives from every nation crowded the hall, their faces showing the same mixture of grief and confusion that she felt. "We have lost over 4,000 citizens in the Mars colony attack," she said, her voice steady despite everything. "The aliens continue to ignore all attempts at communication. I am authorizing defensive measures for all colonies and stations. Shield generators will be prioritized. Evacuation routes established. But I want to be absolutely clear. We will not launch offensive operations. We will not become the monsters they seem to think we are." Some representatives argued for retaliation. Others called for complete withdrawal from space. In the end, they voted to support the president's defensive stance while continuing all attempts at peaceful contact. Engineer Yoon Ji-woo barely heard about the vote. She was too busy working 18-hour shifts at Luna Base, upgrading shield systems and structural integrity fields. Her team had discovered something interesting about the Vakrin weapons. They operated on a specific frequency that Earth's shield technology could potentially deflect with some modifications. "We could stop their attacks," her assistant said excitedly. "If we tune the shields right, their weapons would be useless." Ji-woo stared at the data. "And then what? They bring bigger weapons? We need to end this war, not win it. But if we could protect people, we prioritize civilian shelters." Ji-woo cut him off. "Homes, schools, hospitals, not military bases, not weapons platforms. If we're going to survive this, we do it by protecting life, not by preparing to take it." She sent her shield modifications to every colony and station with instructions to focus on protecting population centers. The Vakrin intercepted these transmissions, and their analysts went into a panic. The humans were upgrading their defenses. This had to mean they were preparing to unveil their true weapons. Why else would they need stronger shields unless they expected massive retaliation for what they were about to do? Commander Thalric read the intelligence reports with a growing sense of dread. Every piece of data suggested the humans were preparing for something big, but their behavior made no sense. They weren't evacuating their civilians to safety. They weren't moving military assets into position. They were just ... defending, protecting, rescuing their own wounded, and sometimes even rescuing Vacrine warriors who got caught in damaged ships or dangerous situations. What if we're wrong about them? Thalric said quietly to his second officer.
How wrong how, Commander?
What if they're not warriors at all? What if those transmissions we intercepted weren't military communications? His second officer looked uncomfortable. The High Council has reviewed all intelligence personally. They confirmed the threat assessment. If we're wrong, it would mean we've been slaughtering innocents. Yes, Thalric said. It would mean exactly that. The Vacrine fleet moved deeper into the solar system. More attacks followed. A research station near Venus, a mining vessel in the asteroid belt, a satellite network around Earth's moon. Each time the humans responded with rescue and evacuation. Each time, the Vacrine expected devastating retaliation that never came. And with each attack, Commander Thalric's certainty crumbled a little more. He looked at the casualty reports differently now. 47 dead at Europa, 4,000 at Mars's Colony 7, hundreds more at each subsequent attack. All civilians, according to intercepted human communications. All innocent people who had been growing food, conducting research, mining resources, living their lives. What had they done? The Vacrine High Council made their decision in the cold calculation of war. Earth itself would be struck. Not destroyed, they assured themselves. Hurt badly enough that humanity would have to respond with their full military might. Then the Vacrine would finally see what they were really dealing with. Sol was chosen because intelligence suggested it was a major population center with significant cultural importance. Surely the humans would defend such a place with everything they had. Medical responder Kong Sora was finishing a double shift at Seoul Metropolitan Hospital when the sirens started. She'd been working in emergency medicine for 8 years and had heard every kind of alarm the city had. This was different. This was the new one they'd installed after Mars Colony 7, the alien attack warning. Everyone to the shelters, the head doctor ordered, but Sora could see patients in the beds around her. We can't just leave them. The building has reinforced sections. Move who you can. The rest will have to protect in place. The first impacts came 3 minutes later. The Vacrine weapons hit with precision, targeting what their scans identified as military or government structures. But Seoul was old and crowded, buildings packed together, and the weapons didn't care about the civilians living next to their intended targets. Sora felt the hospital shake. The lights flickered and died, replaced by emergency systems. She heard screaming from the floors above and grabbed her medical kit without thinking. Years of training took over. Move toward the emergency. Help who you can. Save who you can. The North Wing had taken a direct hit. 3 floors collapsed into each other, creating a maze of twisted metal and broken concrete. Sora climbed through the wreckage, following the sounds of crying and calls for help. She found a family trapped under a fallen beam, a mother shielding to children with her own body. Sora got them out, one by one. Passing them back to other responders who'd followed her in, she was pulling the mother free. When she heard a different sound, a crash of metal nearby, followed by a high-pitched whine that didn't sound human at all. Sora turned and saw a Vacrine dropship embedded in the wreckage. Smoke pouring from its damaged hull, the ship's door hung open. Inside, 3 Vacrine soldiers moved weakly, their armor cracked and leaking some kind of fluid. One of them saw Sora and raised a weapon with a shaking hand. Sora should have run. These were the creatures who'd just destroyed part of her hospital, killed her patients, killed her city, but she'd taken an oath a long time ago. She treated the sick and injured. All of them. She held up her hands, showing her medical kit. I'm a doctor, she said slowly, knowing they probably couldn't understand. I can help you. The alien kept the weapon pointed at her but didn't fire. Sora moved closer, slowly, her hands visible. She knelt beside the nearest Vacrine, a young one whose armor had been breached. Purple blood pooled beneath them. The alien with the weapon said something in their language, sharp and questioning. Sora didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone. "Why are you doing this?" "Because you're hurt," Sora said simply. She opened her kit and started treating the wounded. Bakreen, the soldier who'd pointed the weapon at her, was named Pelvic. He'd been in the Vakreen military for only 2 cycles, barely an adult by his people's standards. He'd been told that humans were monsters who would torture captured enemies. He'd been told to expect no mercy. Instead, this small human female was saving his squadmate's life. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, applying substances that seemed to work despite the biological differences between their species. She worked on his squadmate for 10 minutes before moving to the next wounded Vakreen. Pelvic lowered his weapon. He activated his suit's translation software, something he'd never needed in combat before. The device struggled with the human language, but managed to produce rough approximations. "Why help enemies?" he asked. The human looked up at him. Her face was dirty and she had an injury on her forehead that she hadn't treated. "I'm a doctor," she said again. "It's what I do." "We destroy your building. Kill your people. I know." The human's voice was tight but steady, and I hate that. "But you're hurt, and I can help you. That's all that matters right now." Pelvic transmitted the entire exchange back to his ship. The communications officer who received it didn't know what to do with it, so it got forwarded up the chain of command until it reached Commander Thalric himself. The commander watched the transmission 3 times. He saw the human medical responder working on wounded Vakreen soldiers while her own people lay dead and dying around her. He saw the compassion in her face, even though she had every reason to let his people suffer. "Connect me to the High Council," Thalric said. Immediately, while Thalric tried to reach his superiors. Scientist Dr. Han Taijin was having a breakthrough in his laboratory on Earth. He'd been studying the Vakreen transmissions for weeks, trying to understand why they'd declared war. With help from linguists and cryptographers, he'd finally managed to decode some of their internal communications. What he found made his blood run cold. The Vakreen had intercepted human transmissions and misinterpreted them completely. They'd seen Earth's entertainment media, movies and shows about superheroes and space battles and impossible technologies. The aliens thought these were real. They thought they were military propaganda showing humanity's true capabilities. Taijin pulled up his own library of movies and shows, seeing them now through alien eyes. Humans who could fly and shoot lasers from their eyes. Humans who commanded massive space fleets and destroyed planets. Humans who couldn't be killed, who came back from death again and again. "Oh no," Taijin whispered. "They think we're gods." He compiled his findings and sent them directly to President Chom and Seo. Within an hour, he was on a video call with her and a dozen other officials, explaining what he'd discovered. "They think every rescue operation is psychological warfare," Taijin explained. "They think we're not defending ourselves because we don't need to. They think we're so powerful that their attacks are meaningless to us." "That's insane," someone said. "It's logical from their perspective," Taijin countered. "They don't have fiction the way we do. Or if they do, they don't broadcast it openly. They saw our movies and TV shows and thought they were documentary footage." President Chomin Seo sat back in her chair, her face pale. "Then every time we've tried to show them we're peaceful, we've actually confirmed their fears. Every time we didn't retaliate, we made them think we were toying with them." "Exactly. So how do we fix this?" Taijin pulled up tactical displays showing the Vakreen fleet positions. "We need to show them we're vulnerable. We need to prove we're not the monsters they think we are. And we need to do it before they decide to stop testing us and start trying to actually destroy us." Captain Li Doyan was called into the president's office the next morning. He stood at attention while she explained what they'd learned and what they needed him to do. "You want me to fly unarmed into their flagship and surrender?" Doyan said slowly. "Not surrender. Explain. Show them the truth. They'll probably kill me." "Probably," the president agreed. "But if we don't try this, they'll definitely kill millions more of us. They'll keep escalating until we're all dead, or until they're convinced we've revealed our secret weapons. This is the only way." Doyen thought about Europa, about Mars Colony 7, about Sol. He thought about all the people who died while trying to show these aliens that humans weren't their enemy. "I'll do it," he said, "but I want Park Hana from Defense Station Horizon. She's the best diplomatic officer we have." "Done. Anyone else?" "Bae Young-sik. He's former military, worked in special operations before he retired. If this goes wrong, I want someone who knows how to handle a bad situation." The president nodded. "You'll leave in 48 hours. We're designing a ship specifically for this mission. No weapons. Transparent hull sections so they can see inside. Broadcasting continuously on all frequencies. If they want to kill you, they'll have to do it knowing exactly what you are. 3 humans trying to talk." Doyen saluted. "Understood, ma'am," as he left the office. Doyen wondered if he was about to end a war or just become another casualty of the worst misunderstanding in human history. The ship they built for the mission was called Unity. It had transparent sections in the hull that showed the interior workings, the crew spaces, everything. No hidden compartments. No weapons. Just a small diplomatic vessel with 3 humans who were either very brave or very stupid. Captain Lee Doyen sat in the pilot's seat, his hands steady on the controls as they approached the Vacrine fleet. Beside him, Park Hana prepared her presentation materials, while Bae Young-sik monitored the tactical display. Watching the alien ships track their approach, "They've got at least 40 weapons locked on us," Young-sik said calmly. "Any one of them could vaporize us instantly." "Thank you for that reassuring observation," Doyen replied. He opened the broadcast channel. "This is Captain Lee Doyen of Earthship Unity. We are unarmed. We request permission to speak with your commander. We believe there has been a terrible misunderstanding." The message repeated in every language Park Hana had loaded into the system, including her best attempt at Vacrine. For 3 long minutes there was no response. Then a targeting laser locked onto their ship and began scanning them. "They're looking inside us," Hana said, watching her instruments. "Very thorough scans. They're checking every centimeter of the ship." "Let them look," Doyen said. "They won't find anything except 3 scared humans and a lot of apologies." Commander Thalric stood in his command chamber, watching the human ship approach on the main display. His tactical officers wanted to destroy it immediately. His intelligence officer insisted it was a trap, but Thalric had seen too much that didn't make sense. He needed answers. "Bring them aboard," he ordered. "Full security protocols. If they try anything, kill them instantly. But I want to hear what they have to say." The Unity was guided into the flagship's docking bay by tractor beams. Doyen, Hana, and Young-sik walked out to find themselves surrounded by 50 Vacrine soldiers, all with weapons pointed at them. The aliens were smaller than humans, but their armor made them look dangerous, and their weapons definitely were. Commander Thalric himself came to greet them. He was taller than the soldiers, his skin a darker shade of purple, and his eyes held something that might have been doubt. "He claimed this is a misunderstanding," Thalric said through a translation device. "Explain." Park Hana stepped forward, her tablet held carefully where everyone could see it. "We believe you intercepted our entertainment transmissions and mistook them for military communications. May I show you?" Thalric gestured permission. Hana pulled up a split screen on her tablet, showing a scene from a popular superhero movie on one side and documentary footage of actual human military capabilities on the other. "This," she pointed to the superhero, "is fiction, a story we created for entertainment, not real. This person cannot actually fly or shoot energy from their hands. It's special effects, computer graphics, acting. You expect me to believe that?" Thalric said. "I can prove it," Hana replied. She pulled up behind-the-scenes footage showing how the movie was made, the actors in front of green screens, the computer artists adding effects frame by frame. She spent the next hour methodically explaining the concept of fiction. She showed them Earth's actual military capabilities, which were designed for defense and policing, not galactic conquest. She played recordings of real human conflicts, explaining that these were wars between different groups of humans. It's not training exercises. The Vacrine commanders listened in growing horror. Hannah showed them agricultural statistics, medical capabilities, scientific achievements. She showed them what humanity actually was. A young species that had barely left their own planet. Still learning, still growing, not even close to the galactic power that Vakreen had imagined. Byung-sik, who'd been silent until now, pulled up casualty statistics on his own device. "May I?" he asked Hannah. She nodded. Young-sik displayed the numbers for all to see. Europa mining outpost. 47 dead. 112 wounded. Mars Colony 7. 4,017 dead. Over 2,000 wounded. Venus Research Station. 93 dead. Sol. 846 dead so far. Still counting. Asteroid Belt Mining Ship. 31 dead. Total human casualties from your attacks. Over 7,000 dead. Thousands more injured. You pulled up the Vakreen casualty reports. Your losses: 38 ships destroyed or damaged in accidents and defensive fire. Estimated crew casualties: around 400. You've lost 400 warriors while killing 7,000 civilians. The room went silent. Thalric's face, already dark purple, seemed to go even darker. "The humans you've been fighting," Young-sik continued, his voice quiet but firm, "were farmers, scientists, miners, doctors, families. We weren't holding back because we were so powerful we didn't need to. We were holding back because we kept hoping you'd stop. We kept hoping you'd realize we weren't your enemy." Park Hannah pulled up one final video. It showed Kong Sora treating wounded Vakreen soldiers in the WR. Cage of Soul. Pelvic was visible in the frame, asking her why she was helping them. "Because I'm a doctor," Sora's recorded voice said. "It's what I do." Thalric watched the video 3 times. When it ended, he turned to his communications officer. "Connect me to the High Council. All of them. This cannot wait." The High Council appeared as holographic projections around the chamber. Thalric showed them everything Hannah had presented. He showed them the truth about human capabilities, about human casualties, about the terrible mistake they'd made. The eldest council member was silent for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "We have committed genocide against a peaceful species." "Not genocide," Park Hannah said, though her voice shook. "You didn't know. You made a terrible mistake, but you didn't know what you were doing." "Ignorance is not innocence," Thalric said. "We should have tried harder to communicate. We should have questioned our intelligence. We should have—" He stopped, unable to continue. Captain Duyan spoke up. "What matters now is stopping the killing. Your fleet is still out there. Your warriors are still attacking our people. Can you call them off?" "Immediately," Thalric said. He began issuing orders, his voice sharp and commanding. "All ships, cease offensive operations immediately. All ships render humanitarian assistance to any humans in distress. This war is over. By order of Commander Thalric and the High Council, hostilities end now." The orders went out across the Vakreen fleet. Ships that had been preparing to attack Earth's orbital platforms powered down their weapons. Ships near Mars and Jupiter began offering medical aid and rescue assistance instead of destruction. Young-sik watched the tactical display update. "They're actually doing it. All hostile contacts are standing down." "Of course they are," Thalric said heavily. "We may have started this war in ignorance, but we will not continue it in knowledge. We are warriors, but we are not monsters." "Could have fooled me," Young-sik said quietly. He'd lost his entire Special Operations Unit in the Mars Colony 7 attack. Every person he'd served with for 10 years was dead. Thalric met his eyes. "You are right to hate us. We have earned your hatred. We have earned the hatred of your entire species. All I can say is that we did not know, and that is the weakest excuse in the universe." Park Hannah was composing a message to Earth, her fingers shaking on the keyboard. "The war is over. The Vakreen are standing down. We're coming home," she sent the message, and then finally let herself cry. Doyen put a hand on her shoulder. Young-sik turned away, his jaw tight with emotions he couldn't express. Commander Thalric stood alone, surrounded by his warriors and the humans he'd almost destroyed, and felt the full weight of what his people had done. 7,000 dead, thousands more wounded. Colonies destroyed, lives shattered, all because they hadn't bothered to truly understand what they were looking at. All because they'd seen danger where there was only hope for peaceful contact. All because they'd brought war to a species that had only ever wanted to talk. How do we fix this? Thalric asked quietly. I don't know if you can, Doyan replied. But you can start by helping us save the people who are still alive. You can start by trying to make things right. Yeah, we will, Thalric promised. Whatever it takes. Whatever you need. The Vacrine Collective will spend the rest of our existence trying to repair the damage we've done. He just hoped it would be enough, Commander. Thalric made his broadcast to the entire Vacrine Collective 3 hours after the Unity delegation revealed the truth. He stood in his command chamber, his uniform stripped of rank insignia as a sign of shame, and spoke directly to every Vacrine citizen across their vast empire. We have committed an act of unprecedented horror, he began. We declared war on a peaceful species based on misunderstood intelligence. We killed thousands of civilians. We destroyed homes and research stations and colonies. We did this while they begged us to stop, while they tried to save us even as we murdered them. There is no excuse. There is no justification. We were wrong, and the blood of innocents stains our entire civilization. He showed them everything. The entertainment videos they'd mistaken for military propaganda, the casualty reports, the footage of human rescue workers saving Vacrine soldiers. He showed them Kung Sora treating the wounded in Seoul, Kim Junho pulling Vacrine pilot Sylvan from a crashed ship, the desperate attempts at communication that the Vacrine had ignored. Effective immediately, Thalric continued. All Vacrine military forces will render humanitarian aid to humanity. We will help rebuild what we destroyed. We will care for those we injured. And we will face justice for what we have done. The war is over. It should never have begun. The broadcast reached every corner of the Vacrine Collective. The reaction was swift and overwhelming. Shame, horror, disbelief. Some Vacrine refused to accept the truth. Many more demanded accountability. The High Council, to their credit, did not hide from responsibility. They dissolved themselves and called for a complete restructuring of Vacrine society and military doctrine on Earth. The response was more complicated. President Cho Min-seo addressed the United Nations with Thalric's broadcast playing behind her. The Vacrine have acknowledged their mistake and ceased hostilities. They have offered to help with reconstruction and medical care. The question before us now is, what do we do next? The chamber erupted in argument. Some delegates demanded war crimes trials. Others called for the Vacrine to be expelled from human space immediately. A few, very few, suggested forgiveness and reconciliation. We lost 7,000 people, the Korean delegate said, her voice breaking. How do we just forgive that? I'm not asking anyone to forgive, President Cho replied. I'm asking us to decide who we want to be. Do we become the monsters they thought we were? Or do we remain who we've always been? The vote was close, but ultimately humanity chose to accept Vacrine assistance. The conditions were strict. All military vessels would remain outside Earth's solar system. Only civilian ships with humanitarian supplies would be permitted. Any violation would result in immediate expulsion. Engineer Yoon Gyu found herself working alongside Vacrine technicians at Luna Base, helping to rebuild defensive systems that both species hoped would never be needed again. The first day was awkward and tense. The Vacrine engineers were skilled but kept apologizing for everything, even things that weren't their fault. Stop, Gi-woo finally said after the 5th apology in an hour. Just stop. We have work to do. Apologizing constantly isn't helping anyone. The lead Vacrine engineer, a female named Kursan, looked down at her tools. We killed your people. How can we just work together, as if nothing happened? We can't, Gi-woo said flatly. Something did happen. Something terrible. But right now, there are still people hurt and stations damaged and colonies that need power restored. We can deal with our feelings later. Right now, we work. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even really cooperation. It was just two species choosing to focus on practical problems instead of drowning in guilt and grief. Some days, that was enough. Kim Jun-ho had a harder time. He'd been offered a position as a liaison between Earth and Vacrine forces, helping coordinate rescue and reconstruction efforts. But every time he saw Vacrine, he thought about Minsu. His brother had been 28 years old. He'd been planning to propose to his girlfriend. He'd been excited about a new hydroponics project that might help feed Mars colonies more efficiently. Now Minsu was dead, and Jun-ho was supposed to work with the people who killed him. He tried. He really did. He worked with Vacrine logistics coordinators to establish supply routes. He helped Vacrine medical teams understand human biology so they could treat injured humans more effectively. But at night, alone in his quarters, he cried and raged and wished he could hate them completely. One day, encountered Sylvan, the Vacrine pilot he'd rescued. She recognized him immediately. "You saved my life," she said through her translation device. "I never properly thanked you." "I don't want your thanks," Jun-ho said, his voice cold. "My brother died that day. I saved you, but I couldn't save him." Sylvan was quiet for a moment. "I know no words that will help. I know my people killed someone you loved. If it helps, I have devoted the rest of my life to ensuring this never happens again. I am training as a first contact specialist. I will teach Vacrine about other species so we never make this mistake again." "Good," Jun-ho said. And then, because he was so tired of carrying his anger, "That's good. Make it mean something." Dr. Han Taijan led a joint commission tasked with preventing similar catastrophes in the future. The team included humans, Vacrine, and eventually representatives from other species who'd been watching the conflict with growing alarm. They developed protocols for first contact situations, universal translation standards, ways to verify whether transmissions were entertainment or actual communication, cultural exchange programs. It was tedious work, but absolutely necessary. We almost destroyed each other because we didn't understand basic things about how we communicate. Taijin explained to his team, "We cannot let this happen again." The Vacrine representatives on the commission worked with almost desperate intensity. They knew their species would forever be remembered for this mistake. The only way to redeem themselves? As to ensure no other species ever made the same error, Park Hannah became Earth's first official ambassador to the Vacrine Collective. It wasn't a job she wanted, but she was uniquely qualified. She'd been there when the truth was revealed. She understood both species now. Her first official meeting at the Vacrine homeworld was difficult. The new Vacrine government leaders greeted her with formal apologies and offers of reparations. Hannah accepted both with diplomatic grace while privately feeling exhausted by the whole thing. "We cannot undo what was done," the new High Counselor said, "but we can commit to being better. We can change our entire society to prevent this from ever happening again." "That's going to take generations," Hannah replied. "Then we will work for generations. However long it takes." Hannah filed her reports back to Earth, always emphasizing that the Vacrine seemed genuinely committed to change. Whether humanity would ever trust them again was another question entirely. Kong. Sora never attended the ceremony where the Vacrine tried to give her their highest civilian honor. She couldn't. The award meant nothing compared to the lives lost. But she did continue her work as a medical responder in Seoul. And when Vacrine began applying to her training program, she accepted them. Pelvic was in her first class. The young Vacrine warrior had left the military and devoted himself to medicine. He was clumsy at first, his large hands struggling with delicate instruments. But he learned quickly. "Why do you do this?" he asked Sora one day. "I was part of the attack on your city. I could have killed you. Why teach me?" Sora looked at him for a long moment. "Because you want to learn? Because you want to help instead of hurt. Because I'd rather spend my life training people to save lives than waste it hating you, even after everything my people did. Especially after everything your people did. Someone has to break the cycle. Might as well be us." Bae Youngsik struggled the most. He'd been a soldier, and soldiers understood revenge. Every one of his unit was dead because of Vacrine mistakes. Some days he wanted nothing more than to make them pay. But he'd also seen the look on Commander Thalrix's face when the truth was revealed. He'd seen genuine horror and shame. He'd watched Vacrine engineers work themselves to exhaustion helping rebuild human stations. He'd seen Vacrine medical personnel treating human patients with desperate gentleness, as if they could heal the relationship through individual acts of care. It didn't fix anything. It didn't bring back his friends, but it was something. 1 year after the war ended, a memorial was dedicated at Mars Colony 7. President Cho Min-seo stood beside Commander Thalric at the ceremony. The monument was simple, a wall with the names of every human who died in the conflict. And beneath it, the inscription in Korean, English, and Vacrine, "We fought to save each other. May we never forget what that cost." Thousands attended the ceremony, both human and Vacrine. There were no speeches. No one had words that felt adequate. People just stood together in silence, remembering Kim Jun-ho came with Sylvan. They'd been working together on safety protocols for rescue operations. He still missed Minsu every day. But the anger had dulled to something he could live with. Yoon Gi-woo attended with her mixed engineering team. They'd just finished rebuilding the last damaged station. The work wasn't perfect, but it was done. Kong Sora came with Pelvic and her other students. They laid flowers at the memorial, a tradition Pelvic had learned from his human instructor. Park Hannah watched via video feed from the Vacrine homeworld. She was negotiating trade agreements and cultural exchange programs, building a future, one tedious diplomatic meeting at a time. Dr. Han Taijin stood near the back of the crowd with his first contact, the commission. They'd just finalized their protocols. Now came the hard part, getting every spacefaring species to agree to follow them. Bae Young-sik came alone. He stood at the wall, running his fingers over names he knew. His friends, his unit. People who'd trusted him to keep them safe, and who died anyway. A young Vacrine approached him hesitantly. "I lost my parent in this war. They were on one of the ships damaged by human defensive fire. I know it was our fault. I know we started this. But I still miss them." Young-sik looked at the young Vacrine and saw someone carrying the same weight he was. "I'm sorry for your loss, and I for yours." They stood together at the memorial, two people from different worlds, both trying to figure out how to move forward while carrying the weight of what had happened. Above them, in orbit, construction continued on the joint human-Vacrine research station. The project had been controversial on both sides, but eventually approved. Some saw it as a symbol of hope. Others saw it as premature. Maybe it was both. In a classroom, on the station, students from both species learned together. The lesson that day was about the war because neither species was allowed to forget. The teacher asked what lesson they should take from this history. A human student raised her hand. "That we should always try to understand each other first," a Vacrine student added quietly. "And that mercy is not weakness." The teacher, a veteran with scars from both sides, nodded slowly. "And that peace is built not by those who were never hurt, but by those who choose not to hurt back. That's the hardest lesson of all." The students sat with that for a moment, these children born into a galaxy forever changed by misunderstanding and tragedy. They were the generation that would have to live with what their elders had done and somehow build something better. It wouldn't be easy. Forgiveness would take generations, if it came at all. Trust would have to be earned one small action at a time, but they would try. Because the alternative was to let the deaths mean nothing, to let the tragedy define them forever. And neither species wanted that. So they built together. They learned together. They moved forward together, carrying their grief and guilt and hope all at once, and somewhere in the darkness between stars. Other species watched this strange alliance and wondered what it meant that two civilizations could come so close to destroying each other and choose instead to become something new.